Hi, Eden Cause, your host, bringing along my company, Just Be, and we are about to take a spiritual boom. We are at an unprecedented time in human history where we are transitioning from 3D to 5D within the great spiritual awakening. This video and audio podcast is the place for you to find your truth beyond politics, your sovereignty, your voice. Let's kick up your vibration now. By the way, each episode ends with the Just Be practice to do just that. P.S. Just to know a little bit more about me, I'm a psychological empath, meditation master, dimensional healer, all the things to help you within this ascension. To learn more about me, visit me at EdenJustBe.com. And let's get this party started. Okay, let me do a docile one. I'm not so good with those. Eden. Just Be Spiritual Boom in association with the Grassroots Warriors Network. Scott, hello in Denver.
Hello, Eden.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm really great. Thank you so much. Today, potentially, I always put this out there based on who knows where we're going to go. Yet, I do know these things. We are going to be talking about the Great Awakening. And Scott, from what I've seen from some of the videos that you've done, you seem to really excel talking about this in the corporate world and the mainstream world. So I want to talk about that. Would you agree with that?
Yes, but you've got me concerned in that you've looked at my stuff. So we may be going places I haven't been yet, but that's a good thing.
That is a very good thing because I talked to Scott, like we're going to go beyond the corporate and the mainstream because you have a title of a program that you are now initiating called What's Really Going On, Apocalypse or Evolution. And my audience knows that we are in an evolution. So we're going to talk through that. So I want to know how you're sharing this with what I call normies and how it's going. Our people listening, which is really great. I want to know more about your military and government experience because you are awake and did some of that experience prompt you. So we're going to go into that. I want to know about your perception on money, power, spiritual evolution. We're going to talk some about health, keeping calm. And again, as I talked about, I want to go deep today. All right. So before I read Scott's bio, and I already told him I'm going to read the full one. He gave me two beautiful ones, a shorter one, which I usually go for the shorter, but I really like the long one. So I'm going to read that. So hold on to your hats. Okay. As I always say, and have been saying for a while, at the beginning of the show, y'all know I was part of a gold IRA scam. So episode 188 is so good because Miles Franklin, Kevin, and Andy came on the show to really talk about that. And I shared a little bit of my experience, and everything turned out to be really, really, really good, actually. Kevin really helped me for 2 months shift everything over to them. And you don't have to go with them. It doesn't matter. But they are... In this world that we're in right now, Scott, you may, integrity is such a big thing, and they have integrity. So if you want to invest with them or whatever you want to do, I would encourage info@milesfranklin.com, emailing them and put Eden in the subject line because they know me. We have a personal relationship. Scott, I do want to ask you, where are you with precious metals right now and silver and gold? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say it as all in. So, and if you want to talk about that, we can talk about that. But yes, if you look at what's happening around the world from an economic and money standpoint, everyone is moving toward hard assets, and one of the most valuable are gold and silver.
Mm-hmm. It's a good thing. I recommend people to have some on your person. Why not? I mean, my IRA, the old IRA was invested in, like Apple and Google, and I just didn't feel good about that at all. And I wanted to be, I feel that where we're heading, everyone is going to be abundant and it's all going to be good. Yet it's kind of fun to do this right now. Okay, let me switch my page and read your bio. Okay, Scott F. Paradis. A retired U.S. Army colonel, author, speaker, and student of truth, love that, explores the intersection of human potential, money, power, and social evolution. Born and raised in New Hampshire, Scott entered the Army with a desire to serve and to understand the forces that shape our lives. Indeed. Over a 30-year military career, he served in key leadership roles across Europe and the Middle East, working as a congressional fellow in the U.S. Senate, and completed a national security fellowship at Harvard. These experiences revealed how systems function, how power concentrates, and how profoundly the dynamics of social influence, money, and power affect ordinary people. A few years after retiring from the Army, Scott and his wife Lisa explored Alaska for 9 years before moving to Colorado, and you've only been there for 6 months, where they now live with their golden doodle Rusty and their cat Grace. Scott's post-uniform life deepened his focus on questions that had followed him for decades. What is success and how does one succeed? Why does society increasingly feel mired? Why do our economic and political systems tilt towards concentrating power? And what does this tilt mean for individual people trying to live meaningful, purposeful lives? These crucial questions shaped his post-military path. Scott, oh my gosh, has written 11 books on leadership, money, and human potential, produced multiple online programs and creative immersive workshops, helping people understand the profound forces driving today's uncertainty. His newest work, which I discussed, What's Really Going On, Apocalypse or Evolution, weaves together economics, psychology, history, and spiritual growth to reveal a startling yet hopeful insight. As y'all know, we are not experiencing a collapse, but an evolutionary moment, a chance to move beyond systems built on extraction, hierarchy, and fear. Central to Scott's work is the idea that money is both a tool and a teacher, a mirror reflecting how power flows and how societies organize themselves. When we misunderstand money, we misunderstand the world. When we understand it, we awaken to our agency and our role in shaping what comes next. Okay, this is the last paragraph. Scott holds degrees from the University of New Hampshire and Central Michigan University. Today, he speaks, writes, and teaches about leadership, societal transformation, and the internal shift required to navigate this extraordinary era, which it is. He invites audiences to see this moment for what it is, a shared evolutionary adventure, one in which every person has a role to play and the power to change the story. I'm going to read that again and put even more emphasis on it. And the power to change the story. Okay, my first question to you. All right. How did you come to see The Great Awakening, The Matrix, human evolution? Was there one pivotal thing or was it a build? How did that go for you?
That's an interesting, I would say, looking back, it's been something I've been interested in my whole life, sort of the big picture. What's life about? What's my purpose in it? So when I was young, saying high school age, started reading those exploratory books, the philosophical books. Then when I went through college and got married, it was more practical,
Okay,
joined the
wait a
army and
second.
so
Let me ask you a question. So a lot of people in high school don't read those kind of books.
right.
So has there always been a part of you that's like, I want to know how life works. What is that really? Did your parents look at that and they're like, oh gosh, like what kind of books did you read?
Well, there's one because I wanted to mention it to you. Do you remember The Late Great Planet Earth by Hal Lindsey? Do you remember that series?
Yes.
Okay. So that was latter high school, beginning college, but it was those kinds of
Mm.
books. And I can't remember the titles, but it was it was what we consider now the self-help personal awakening kind of books. But I
Mm.
was into those from the very beginning. And it was really, I always considered myself different, if you will.
Oh
Didn't
yeah.
fit into sort of the mainstream. So I pursued some different interests. And the big one was, why are we here and what's this all about? So from a very young age. Now, I would say in my military years, it was more practical. So it was family, it was mission, it was things that had to do with my position in the Army and so forth. But then when I retired from the Army, I thought I wanted to do something that was made a contribution and that was impactful. And that brought me right back to why are we here? What are we all about? What is success? These same kinds of questions. And over time, and I think we'll talk about that through our session together, I kind of came to where I am now. Now, it doesn't mean this is the answer and this is the truth, but this is where I am. This is how I see the world today.
Okay. With okay, can you explain your fellowship first? Because there are different types of fellowships. What was that like for you?
So it was in the Army. So it was a fellowship that I applied for in the Army. So I had two fellowships. One was a congressional fellowship.
Mhm.
So I had been assigned to the Pentagon, and I was assigned in a sort of a personnel and analyst kind of position. And it was a data driven position, and it was not something I was very excited about. So I saw this opportunity to apply for a congressional fellowship serving up on Capitol Hill. And every year, the military, all the services, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, they send fellows up to serve with members of Congress. So either on the House or the Senate side, and you serve the full year as a staff member working for that either senator or representative. So I applied for that program and was selected, and I ended up working for a senator for a full year. So it was the year 2003. And I worked as essentially the military legislative assistant for a senator for that year. It was suit and tie. It was every day getting off the metro, walking up to Capitol Hill, going to my office, and working for that full year there. So it was a great experience. It was an opportunity to see the Department of Defense and Department of the Army from the other side of the
Hmm.
river, so to speak. So watching from Capitol Hill and how things happened, in some respects, how the sausage is made, if you will.
Yeah.
The other fellowship, again, was an application process through the Army, and it was for what we call our senior executive educational program. You have an option to apply for a fellowship outside of the main course, which is offered at Fort Carlisle in what we call the Army War College. So I applied for a fellowship at Harvard and was selected for that fellowship. And again, it was the academic year. So we arrived in late July, I think, and left in June the following year. But it was, again, as you're a student, you're attending classes at Harvard for the year. That was a national security fellowship, interacting with the students and the faculty with a national security focus.
Hmm. Okay. So we talked about 30 years. Okay, so your 30 years experience in Army and the roles in Congress and at Harvard, which I consider two of the big snake pits of the world. What did you learn about power that most people never see? And maybe even I'm going to expand on that. What blew you away, and maybe even going into illusions being exposed. What
Well,
was that like?
two things. Well, one, from an Army perspective. So
Yeah,
the mission of the Army is to use power, force, violence, if need be,
yeah.
to achieve political ends. So that is the focus. The Army, we frame the Army mission as to win our nation's wars, but essentially it's managing force, power, to achieve certain political ends. So I
Mhm.
studied from small units, so small organizations, up to full army size organizations. How do we apply force to achieve our national objectives? So everything about the Army was in this idea of applying power just in the appropriate places in the appropriate amount to achieve whatever objective. So it was a very inside perspective on the use and application of power. Now, take that. But it's a very large institution. So we're over 1 million people in total, and it's an institution that has systems, and so
Mhm.
you navigate through that system, and you're dealing individual person navigating a very large institution, but at the same time, the purpose of the institution is the large application of power. So there's an individual application of you just navigating a system, but also the systems design is a power with a power purpose. So I go to at first Capitol Hill as an example. And one of the first things I see reiterated is that what gets done there is all about relationships. It's all about individuals creating relationships built on trust to get things done. And if you don't build those relationships, you don't establish that trust, nothing gets done. So if you look at Capitol Hill
Mhm.
today, not a lot of things are getting done, and that's because there is not a lot of trust, and there are
Yeah.
not a lot of strong relationships. But it all comes back to this idea. So I'm in an institution that's all about power and the application of power, but I'm in a now on Capitol Hill looking at how do we manage our politics and get things done on a very large scale. It's still about individual human relationships. Now that's kind of odd. One of the first questions I asked, and I was there for a couple of months, and I asked my legislative director, I said, how come we don't attack the big problems and address them in a significant way? And she said, because we're all about, and I'm summarizing, not a direct quote, but we do things incrementally because we cannot, as a organization, so on Capitol Hill, the House or Senate, Congress, cannot get the big things done because each of them, big things, require too many pieces with too many rice bowls to protect and so forth. So we
Yeah.
do things incrementally. So if you have a piece of legislation, it might take you 10 years to get your piece of legislation passed,
Yeah.
just some little increment. And it's just one increment upon another increment. But then when you look at, from my perspective, now we've created a big mess because we have all these different various elements that don't really necessarily make a cohesive whole. It's kind of a broken system. But why don't we address the big problems? Because we just can't do it. And it's how we use power, and it's power, and it's these trade-offs of relationships and rice bowls and all of those kinds of things. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So, but
Yeah.
going back to your question, how did I have a reveal moment, if you will? So I'm in this
Yeah.
world of power at the institution that I work for, but then looking at it from the highest levels of our government, the use of power, and then it's coming back to personal relationships and personal perspective. And that goes back to the same philosophy that I've been pursuing for my whole life. How do I, the individual, fit into this great big matrix in this great big system? If you look at it just from the institutions that I was involved in, but then look at it from a broader perspective, from the nation state perspective or from the global perspective, how do I fit into all of that? And it all comes back to the same sort of principles. And it's principles about how do I view the world? What's my worldview? What are my beliefs about the world and my place in the world? Now, there's something really amazing about beliefs in humans. The concept of beliefs, so these ideas that we get in our head, actually overpower, overwhelm, or subordinate truth.
Hmm.
By that I mean we get these ideas in our head about the world. Is it a dangerous place? Is it a safe place? Is it a place of scarcity? Is it a place of abundance? We get these ideas about the world and our place in the world. I'm separate from everything else. I'm on my own. I have to compete. It's a law of the jungle to survive. I get these ideas, and then because of the ideas that are in my head, they become beliefs over time, and then beliefs determine how I respond to what I see around me. And that belief is not necessarily congruent with truth.
Yeah.
So, what I'm looking for is what is the truth? And that is what has led me on this journey of exploration and adventure.
Okay. So, what is the truth for you?
The truth for me is that we are divine beings having a human adventure. I say the purpose of life is to explore and experience, learn and grow, create and contribute to express more life. We do that. We are in this playground of life, having this adventure. In just having that adventure and exploring and experiencing, we are adding to the whole because we bring an individual perspective that we feed back to this interconnected whole that we are part of. We are part of that whole. We are one. But we also have a purpose here. In other words, we can come, and some come just to explore and experience. And I explore, I experience, and I go. I come, I explore, experience, and go. Most have, I'm going to come for a purpose. I'm going to explore, experience, learn and grow, create and contribute for a purpose. And I've defined that purpose, whatever it may be. We forget. So one of the deals of coming to this adventure in this playground is I'm going to say, I'm going to lay aside the truth, that I will forget the truth, and I'm going to come into this playground, and it's going to make the experience that much more tangible, that much more real, that much more powerful, because I've immersed myself in this world of time and space that is very different from where I came from the divine setting that I came from. And I'm going to experience this all in that is going to add to our collective knowledge about what we can create, what we can be, and what we can become. But the whole thing, ultimately, the journey that I'm on is a journey of unveiling, apocalypse. The word apocalypse, the book that we call the book of Revelation in our Bible, is
Mhm.
from the Greek, which is apocalypsis, which is actually unveiling. That's why we call it in English revelation. It's unveiling. So the apocalypse is not the Armageddon end of the world disaster. It is an unveiling, and it's an unveiling of truth. So for me, I'm on this journey of unveiling the truth to realize what I really am. I know who I am in truth. I know what I am in truth. I know how I serve in truth. I am free. I am free. I am free. Once I understand that, if I can live that, then I can live my purpose and have a full and fulfilling life.
You speak in a very okay, so not a all right, let me gather my words here for a second. So where you are right now is not a metaphysical because I have so many metaphysical people on my show, yet your language to me is very metaphysical, yet you beautifully also come at it from a very your life path is very different than most people I have on my show, which that is also very unique because you also come from, as you talked about, the army, how we're going to use violence as power to, but you don't, how were you in that world? Because you don't seem that way at all. Does
You
that
know,
make
it's
sense?
interesting. I had my father had been in the Air Force.
Yeah.
In the 50s and 60s, they had the draft and all of that stuff. And I had always thought, as I was growing up, that I wanted to serve. And then when I went to high school, at first I thought maybe I'm going to go to a military academy. I was going to serve. So I was one of those kids that played with the little toy soldiers and all that stuff and did those
Yeah.
kinds of things. So I had something about the military in my head. But when I went to high school and then applied for colleges, I was accepted at the University of New Hampshire. And then I thought, okay, maybe serving in the military is not going to be for me. But now this is interesting because things just serendipitously happen.
Hmm.
So I get this phone call. I'm a senior in high school. I've already said I was going to, I've accepted, University of New Hampshire accepted me, and I've said I'll go there and all that. I get this phone call, and it's an Army recruiter. And so I expect when I get him, my father hands me the phone, and I expect when I tell him I'm going to college that he's going to say, thank you very much, good luck. And instead, I said, I'm going to college. And he said, have I got a deal for you? And so I listened to his pitch, and what it was you join the Army Reserve. So you enlist in the Army Reserve, which is the 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer kind of thing.
Hmm.
But you also go to college and enroll in the Reserve Officers Training Corps. So 3 days out of high school, off I went to Army basic training. And I did basic training in that summer between my senior year of high school and my freshman year of college. So I get out of basic training, I'm crew cut. Now you can imagine showing up to college, crew cut and all that. So I did not fit in, but I joined ROTC and I went through the ROTC program and I got my commission. And I finished out college staying in the reserve. So that was going to be my service. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, you start as a second, I got my commission, start as a second lieutenant. I'll go to captain, which is what we call a company grade officer. So it's a lower rank, but it's a good rank. And I thought I'll get to captain and then I'll just leave the army. And well, we had at the time my intent was to light the world on fire with entrepreneurial ventures. My wife was teaching school. So she was the steady income. I was trying all kinds of things. Nothing was working out. And then we were having our first child and we wanted her to be able to stay home. So that meant I needed to get on the straight and narrow. So I'd been in the Army Reserve, stayed in the Army Reserve. I said, I'm going to apply to go on active duty. So I
Hmm.
applied to go on active duty and they said, you can come on active duty, but you got to go do a recruiting assignment. So we went from New Hampshire to Kansas City, Missouri with a recruiting battalion. So then the rest of my career from there was very eclectic. So it was unusual, but I say it was serendipitous. It was sort
Mm.
of this path that was not. I started in the infantry, which is the grunts, the guys down in the dirt. That's where the real army is, if you will.
Yeah.
And then I went into recruiting, which is sales. Then from there, when I got to
Gotcha.
the recruiting position in Kansas City, Missouri. You have a guy, so you have your personnel guy. So I called my personnel guy up and I said, "Hey, we'd love to go to Europe." He said, "So does everyone else. Don't call us, we'll call you." But so 3 years, my assignment is 3 years in Kansas City with the Kansas City Recruiting Battalion. As the 3 years are coming up, I get this phone call. They said, "Hey, you want to go to Europe?" I said, "Yeah, we'd love to go to Europe." They said, "Well, there's a little catch. The catch is we just signed the Dayton Peace Accords and we're sending a multinational force led by the United States into Bosnia, and we need a replacement that's going to deploy. So I'll deploy, no problem." Off I went. So we get to Germany. My wife, we have a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old. I was there 2 weeks and off I left. My wife is in temporary housing with 2 young children. Luckily, her mother came, but she's a
Ooh,
military brat. So she found a house and all of that. And off I went to Bosnia and came back. So that was started me on this sort of eclectic path. So I'll give you one other example of how
yeah.
it was unusual for me. So at the end of this tour, now I'm back in Germany. The end of the tour, I get this phone call and they said, "Hey, we threw your name in to be a general's aide to a 3-star general, Medal of Honor recipient in Texas." I said, "Okay." Well, recruiting wanted me back, so I was going to go to Atlanta. We bought a house in Atlanta. Everything
Oh
was shipped to
gosh.
Atlanta. I was on leave in New Hampshire at my folks' house. I get this phone call from the 3-star general. He grew up in Boston. I grew up 30 minutes out of Boston. We hit it off. He said, "How'd you like to come to Texas?" "Yes, sir." Off I went to Texas. All my household goods, everything was on its way to Atlanta. We had put money down on a house. We had to redirect all our household goods and everything to go to Texas. And off I went to Texas to be an aide to a 3-star General Medal of Honor recipient. And then after that, it was to the Pentagon. It was just all these things just kept happening that led me to see power from a very different perspective. But it all aligned and was this revelation for me about how this world works.
All right. So to summarize that, okay, and you please tell me, use your own words for this. Gosh, it's another way to think of how to say it. That your experience was not the typical, I guess, army experience. It seems more. I don't want to say shishi. That's not the word I'm looking for. It's not shishi at all. Yet,
I say eclectic in that I
okay.
did not follow what would be a traditional. If typically you join the army,
Thank you.
you get in a division, you stay in that division through your career. Maybe you go to your different courses and so forth. Maybe do a couple outlier assignments. Everything I did was an outlier assignment.
Got it. Thank you for describing that. All right. So you weren't in it typically.
Yes.
Okay, is that a better way to say it? All right. I want to go real quick to your one book. Are Americans really this stupid? Are politicians really this inept? Tell me
Oh,
about that.
you did a little research. So
Uh
so
huh.
the yes. So I'm looking at what's happening now. I read, and you're probably familiar. You're familiar with the Fourth Turning Strauss and Howe's book?
Now that I'm not, no.
Okay. I would recommend you look this one up. So Strauss and Howe are two DC think. I don't know if they would like to be characterized this way. Strauss has left us, but Howe. So I
Oh,
characterize them as two DC think tank kind of guys. So very bright, very capable social scientists. They wrote this
okay.
book in '95, I think. The
Hmm.
Fourth Turning is the name of the book, and I'll come back to that. But so that led me to this. So I'm looking at what's going on in our politics, what's going on in our world. Everything's in turmoil, everything's getting worse and worse. So as I was coming up and when I joined the army, I kind of thought of myself, and this is going to might sound hokey, but I'm like the knight. This is America is think of our founding documents and the marketing language that has drawn so many people to America.
Hmm.
So we're about liberty, we're about opportunity, we're about prosperity, we're about equality, all of those things. So I thought of myself as someone who's bringing those values to the world. But I'm seeing as we go through the 90s, okay, the Soviet Union crashes and there's a possibility for a reset moving in a positive direction. And then we hit 2001 and we kind of make a hard right turn and we're heading in the wrong direction again. We're getting involved in all kinds of wars and I'm in the middle, I'm
Yeah.
in part of all that. So what's going on? So as we go and we continue, I'm seeing from my perspective, things are getting worse. Why are things getting worse? And so that's what brought me to write that book. And so kind of going back to my position that when I asked that legislative director, why don't we fix things? Well, we do things incrementally. Why don't we fix it? Why can't we collectively see we're going in the wrong direction and change course? This is one of my challenges is why we keep seeing we're heading for the edge of the cliff. Why aren't we doing something to step back and look at this in a new way and make better decisions? That was part of the impetus for why I wrote that book is that we are continually making the wrong decisions and why. And so I keep saying it's because we're not, here's how I frame where we are today. We keep thinking, and I keep hoping I keep telling some folks I don't talk to people on very, very deep, like we're going right now, Eden. So
Yeah.
this is special. But when I talk to most people, it's somewhat on the surface, and they're always looking for
Yeah.
why isn't the white knight riding to the rescue and saying, we're doing some stupid stuff. Why don't we reorient and head in the right direction? That's not going to happen. And the
Yep.
reason that's not going to happen, the reason I determined for myself that's not going to happen is because we are each being pushed to that edge individually. And we each individually have to make a choice. Which way am I going to go? And this is the audience you cater to is about this new earth. Am I going to go to the new earth or am I going to stay with the old? We are each being forced to make that choice
Yeah.
individually. So there is no white knight that's going to come in on the horse and is going to save everything and right everything. It's an individual choice that we each have to make. Am I going to make that choice? And I'm not saying the choice is right or wrong, but every choice has consequences.
Yeah.
And you have to be ready to deal with the consequences. So if you choose to go the old, I'm going to stick with the old. I'm going to stick with that world of conflict and competition, of violence and destruction, of pain and suffering, because we've been in that world for 12,000 years. I'm going to stay with the old. I know the old. I like the old. I'm very competitive. I'm going to continue that path because by doggone it, that's where I need to be. Or it's time for a change. And the world is telling us it's time for a change. The world has moved to a higher frequency, and I'll get to that sort of that metaphor here in a little bit. But
Yeah.
it's moved to a new level of being, and we're being asked to make a choice: either stay with the old, or I'm going to join. I'm going to move to a higher, different frequency, the new earth frequency, where I can connect and collaborate, where I can create more, where I can come together with other like-minded people for joy and prosperity and that revealing of our true divine nature. So, I don't, did that answer your question about that book?
Yes, it did. Okay, how did you? I love, of course, the language fits my audience really well. How did you, knowing your Army career, your Congress career, come to this understanding more of the metaphysical parts of it, more of the heart part of it, moving away from competition and violence? How, because you are not the classic person who sees it on such a heart level. And it also sounds like you had such integrity going into the military as well. I wonder if you saw conflict there or if it also just worked out for you. Okay, a multi-layered question.
The I think ultimately it ties back to who I am and why
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah.
The eclectic career that I had, the path, the people that I was brought into. All right, let me just I'll give you this one little example, and because
Okay.
it's an example that sticks with me. So I grew up Catholic,
Yeah.
and when I was young, so I'm talking 5 or 6, we were meeting a new priest after Mass. So you come out of service, and I'm with my parents, and we're meeting the new priest, and the new priest comes up to like greet me, and I hid behind my parents. And it was just an automatic, it was like you think of a young child is kind of shy, that
Yeah.
kind of experience, right? I just hid behind my parents and, chit chatted, and then off we went. Now, That priest was later part of the scandal within the Catholic priest scandal, if you know what I'm
It's
talking
the
about.
big one.
Yes. Yes.
Whoa.
So there was something, some force that made that automatic response for me.
Hmm.
And that is how my life has been. I have not been big drama, great trauma, nothing. I have lived a blessed life. I've been in combat zones and never been shot at. The one time I was in Iraq,
Yeah.
and I'm in what's called the Al Palace, which is a headquarters in Baghdad. And all of a sudden, we start getting notices that we're seeing bullets flying all over the place, completely surrounding our compound. And we're thinking, okay, this is the big one. We're actually getting attacked. Well, so I strap on, all I had was a pistol. I strap on my pistol, get my helmet, I'm going outside. And then we started to get the word. The Iraqi soccer team had beaten the Syrian soccer team. And the way they celebrate is they just shoot all their weapons up
Oh
in
my
the air.
God.
So there's bullets flying all over the place. So what I'm saying is this has been the kind of life that I have led, but I believe it's because I'm guided toward my purpose.
Okay, as I'm sitting here with you, so my work is also, deeply connecting with someone internally. You have an exceptionally big heart. And I am so, okay, I'm gonna get some words again, that you are on the same path as all of truthers, patriots, and especially, I'm a metaphysical one. You're on the same path, yet you come from a different angle, which I think is also very, very nice for people to see and to relate to because not, oh, we're going to talk about the galactics and we're going to talk about energy. You are very tangible for people. And you're also very coming at it from a very kind directive. You're not shouting that this is wrong. And it's very, it's very delightful. What would you say about that?
Oh, well, thank you for that. I try. One of the things, and I think it's always been how I've related to people, and I think that's why I was successful in my military career
Yeah.
and the things that I've done, is that I try to relate to people one on one. And now
Yeah.
I frame it as the light in me sees the light in you. You are a reflection of me. We are
Yeah.
one. We are the same of the same source.
Hmm.
And the more I understand that, and the less I judge, this is my big
Yeah.
hurdle to get over is to
Yeah. I
stop
hear
the
you.
judging,
Hmm.
is then we can progress together.
Hmm. And how has it been with you talking about this to the more corporate world, to people that may be like, I don't quite understand, but do they open and receive what you have to say pretty easily, or what's that been like?
There's I would say it comes down to what people where they are
Yeah.
in this moment. And some are open to it, like the folks that you cater to in the audience that you present to, they are folks who are open to it. I say most folks are so busy doing whatever they're doing that this is this is sort of one of those woo-woo out there kinds of things.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I see that more and more people are in search of something,
Yeah.
and they are finding what they need in their own time and space. It goes back to when I say people are being forced to make a decision. Some people are going to decide to stay with the old. Some people are
Hmm.
going to say, this is all I know. And it's not up to me to say that's right or wrong.
Yeah.
It's up to every person will find their way in their time. My mission, I believe, is to just the ones who are looking, I can open that door a little bit more and we can
Yeah.
have those discussions that will let them say, okay, I'm not the only one. There are other people who think like I think, and maybe there is something to this so that they can begin to reveal their true divine nature.
What have you found? Is it mostly that because I see people like knowing something isn't quite right. Something within my heart, within my soul, isn't quite settled. Or, and so many people that also come on the show have had dramatic health journeys. And that's really been what's turned them around, where, they used to be on all these meds with big pharma, moving much more towards natural. And I want to talk with you about health also, because I'm curious about that part for you. Is it that people just see that something's not quite aligned? What give me a little bit more detail.
Yes, I think one of the things, and here this is key, especially when you're talking health, our bodies are I'm not sure which word to use. It's they are a beacon of truth.
They sure are.
And if we try to push back or take the wrong steps, our body is going to, and it's going to punch us in the gut, so to
Yep.
speak,
Yep.
and say, "Wake up! You're heading in the wrong direction." The first book I wrote in Promise and Potential, and one of the things that I said was success is about heading in the right direction, and our bodies are signaling us when we get off track.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the challenges that we face that are health related challenges are because we haven't taken the time to really think about our true purpose and head in the right direction. And our body's trying to say, "Hey, wake up, wake up, wake up. You're heading in the wrong direction."
Yeah.
And some people just, I'm going to override it, override it, override it for their entire lives.
Mm-hmm.
But then some other people say, "Well, wait a minute. I keep getting hit in the gut. The gut's trying to tell me something. Why don't I change direction?" And then once they start searching, it's that if you look, you will find
Yeah.
it. Then they start finding the answers. And so our body is a tool that's here to help us.
Mm-hmm.
It is not just something we inhabit and disregard. It is helping us achieve our objective, whatever our objective may be.
Mm-mm. Yeah, I always say the body is masterful. It's your messenger. How do you eat? How do you live? What exercising do you do?
Well, so for me, we try to exercise every day. For one thing, Rusty, our golden doodle, we're out for 3 walks a day. So probably about 6 or 7
Whoa.
miles of walking a day.
3 a day. That's awesome.
Yes, and then that's been his whole life. So he would be flabbergasted if we changed the routine. So we've
Gosh.
gotten ourselves in that routine. But then we're to the gym every day for lifting weights 2 to 3 times a week, and then cardio 2 to 3 times a week as well. So all of that, then balance that with eating right. Now, I say eating right. So I wrote a book about health, and what I recommend there is eating whole foods.
Mhm.
As an example, in one of your meals, eat a salad a day, those kinds of things. The closer we have to the original food, the better off we will be. So I try that, but by no means am I perfect in any of that. So my favorite food is still cookies, and I still have my cookies and that sort of thing. So I'm not perfect in any regard as far as my health goes, but I've been lucky and again blessed that I've made it through my life without any real health concerns.
Well, I think that too. To me, there's no perfection. It's just really seeing there's so much right now in terms of processed and fake food, and it's just being awake to the reality and how food is nurtured and how animals are cared for. I have a lot of vegetarians on the show. I had a gentleman who eats raw meat as well, which I tried that too. It's just really interesting because the high meats and their vibrations with meats, that everybody has some a bit of a different philosophy. Yet I also, with me, mindfulness and how you see food and how you see it going through your body. If you even taking a piece of cake and seeing that cake is hurtful, it's going to be hurtful to your body. But if you see it as, oh my gosh, look what I get to embrace, and these cookies that I'm eating, how beautiful and wonderful they are for me. Scott, I've also, well, it's been a while now. I stopped doing processed sugar, very little alcohol. I might have one drink every 3 months, kind of a thing. I really try
Right.
not to do any at all. And this has been for me personally because as I really am dedicated. I am dedicated to raising my vibration. So that's what a lot of eating is for me. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and mention because you're on here. So I'm going to a retreat in Spain. I feel like this is interesting, in a month that basically it's about breatharianism. Are you aware of that at all?
No,
Okay,
no.
this is so. Even when I signed up for this retreat, the guy who is leading it, he's basically like, I wouldn't tell everybody that you're going. Kind of keep it to yourself. But I'm yeah, on the show. I announce it a lot, but it is to me. We've been taught that you need this certain amount of food, you need this certain amount of water, and basically there are people on this earth right now that don't eat and don't drink, really and truly. And then there is a okay. So I think those are breatharians level 4, if I have this right, or maybe I'm getting it reversed. And then there are a whole bunch of people that eat yet very little amounts. And that what we have been taught in terms of you must eat this much, you must eat this way, you must drink this much, you must have this much water a day, apparently is all not true. So I am so I as soon as I heard about it and watched podcasts on it, I'm like, oh, like everything inside of me lit up because there are so many, I don't know about you, so many truths that have been unveiled. And this one to me is like the Mac Daddy. I just
Well,
like,
just
yeah,
looking at that from a very simple perspective. So I wrote a book on health and fitness,
yeah,
and one of the things going the traditional way, it's about diet and exercise and your mindset. So,
mhm,
but one of the simple things that I was always convinced of was how could you go for a run? You're burning calories. And so you would always end up lighter. So this was when I was running more. So I would be
yeah,
running 50, 60 miles a week, those kinds of things. You end up, how could you possibly be heavier after a run than before a run? So this is, and I'll bridge how it's related to what you're talking about. So I thought that is physically from physics, that's impossible. How is
impossible.
that even possible? Because you're burning water, you're losing water, you're burning energy, you are absolutely going to be lighter. So if you weigh yourself, then you go 10 miles and then you weigh yourself again, every time you will be lighter. Well, there were people who were running and they were, I mean, we're not talking pounds, we're talking, fractions and fractions, but they were technically heavier. They were heavier after a run than before. How is that possible? And so, from a simple perspective, it is our human body's connection with our environment. So they're breathing in. So if you just look at it from a physics perspective, breathing in nutrients and capability just through the air that would add weight to them, which is amazing to me. And it kind of blew my mind because I was convinced, going back to my belief, I was convinced there's no way you could be heavier after a run than before. But just interacting with the environment, we're all connected. We're all connected to the environment. It's all one thing. So then if you extrapolate that to what you're talking about,
Yeah.
is this idea of believing what's capable and what's possible, it goes much farther than what we
Yes.
have discovered in our science. We're still in our infancy of discovering how magnificent this whole universe,
Mhm.
reality, capability, and I don't have the intellectual capacity to really understand it, but it is amazing to me.
And I would agree with that. I think it's so much out of the intellect because I deal a lot with the quantum as well. And then for you also with to state in breatharianism, it's more about the breath. The breath becomes your tool of new adding nutrition to your body, and you have seen that in running too. The breath coming in. So I'm just knowing that we are such powerful beings and that as we continue to evolve and take steps forward and put action to it, like to me going to this like it's gonna it's gonna be time, and but part of me is like I just will not stop everything I can discover and uncover and just open myself up to, again, as you describe it, I do too, not challenges anymore. We are on an adventure. And if you see it that way, and if you just want to learn and to expand yourself, I mean, now is the time as well to do so many things that you didn't even think were possible. So I'm going to come back in a month and I know I'm going to be a different person.
Yes, yes.
different person. I'm so, well, I like who I am now. I love who I am now. Let's say that. I'm going to love it even more. Now, let me ask you, in terms of what would you, all right, let me see how to say this too. In terms of helping people, in terms of, okay, so how, so you said that you see more people reaching the tipping point of questioning, of opening up into something new or different. How would you personally encourage them to take next steps? What would you say to them?
In one word, I think it comes down to awareness. So it comes down
Yeah,
to this realizing, hey, maybe this pattern, this routine that I've been in, because I keep getting signals somehow through my body, through people I'm running across, through words that are getting said, through maybe things that are even appearing in my social media feeds or on
yeah,
television that seem kind of, hey, something's trying to wake me up a little bit. So first of all, it's I've got to have some degree of awareness. Now, if you're not looking at all, and if every time you see one of these flares go off, you just turn away and ignore it, okay, that tells yourself, it's you're resisting. The two biggest things we have to all of these signals. So we've got flares going off left and right. We've got signals being sent all around us every single day is fear and resistance. Fear
yeah,
and resistance. I use this example. If we treat life as a river, the typical reaction for most people is they see this great big river flowing and it's flowing in and our purpose is to dive in. Our purpose is to dive in and go with it. Go with the flow.
yeah,
That's why we're here. That's the adventure. If we say, most of us say, well, wait a minute, that's a broad river. That's moving kind of fast. It's a little deep. I'm just going to put my toe in. I'm going to stay here on the edge and I'm just going to put my
mhm,
toe in a little bit. And if it's okay, then maybe I'll put my foot in. So that's fear and resistance. Another strategy is I find myself in the river and it's going a little too fast. So I'm going to get myself a rock and I'm going to cling to that rock and I'm going to hold on to that rock. That's fear and resistance. Another strategy is I'm going to build myself a dam. I'm going to stop this river from impacting me at all.
oof,
Again, it's resistance. We're in a flow. The flow means everything's changing. Our experience is that flow. And sometimes it's wonderful and magnificent. Sometimes it's painful, but it's all part of this journey. And if we resist, if we're in fear and resistance, in one of those strategies, I'm not really going to dive in. I'm going to cling to this rock so that I don't move, or I'm going to build a dam so that the river doesn't affect me. I have limited my experience of life. So you've got to get into the flow. And into the flow, first, to the point of your question, is awareness. I've got to realize something's not right or something else should be happening here. And so I've got to be open to it. The first place to look is what emotions am I feeling? Because if I'm feeling fear or anger or hate, all of what we would characterize as negative emotions, those are all opportunities to explore what's holding me back here. What am I afraid of? Because I'm feeling these feelings of fear, anger, and hate. And it's not to fight against those feelings. What you got to do is let those
yeah,
feelings flow, but then have the awareness to say, it's telling me something. What is it telling me? Am I heading in the wrong direction? Am I judging people? Am I condemning people, blaming people? Who's really responsible here? And I am responsible here. I'm responsible here. One of our easiest things, and I say I'm challenged with this idea of judgment. If I judge someone, I'm giving away my personal power.
yeah,
By that, I mean, who's responsible for how I feel? I'm responsible for how I feel. If I blame someone and condemn someone and say that it's their fault, the way I feel is their fault, then I am giving up both responsibility and personal power. Everyone likes to say freedom. I want to be free. Freedom, freedom. Well, what does freedom mean? Freedom and responsibility go hand in hand. They
yeah,
are two sides of the same coin. If you ultimately want to be free, then you must understand you are ultimately responsible and you are responsible for everything. And by that, I mean this world that we're observing. And I say the turmoil and the chaos and all that. I'm complicit in all of that. I am complicit. If I say I am not complicit, then I am giving up my personal power. I'm complicit. I'm part of all this. But what I have to understand is what am I tuning into? What am I focusing on? And if I can change that tuning, then I can change my focus, change my beliefs, change my experience, change where I how I am approaching this life and understand again back to where we started who I am and what I truly am.
Mm. Let's take, oh, great. Let's take this segment or segue into money. Tell me your
Yes.
perception on that.
Okay, so I'll just start from the very beginning. If we understand money, money is just a social construct. It's an idea. It's something you and I have come to terms with that we are going to use this, what we call money, to facilitate economic exchange. All wealth, all wealth is a product of real human beings doing something productive, constructive for one another. All wealth is the product of real, live human beings doing something productive and constructive for one another. No exceptions. We have this bounty of resources in our world, in our universe, that we get to interact with, and then we can take and shape those resources into look around your room, everything that you see. All of that is value that we take. So, to create something of value, typically we connect with other people, we collaborate, we create something, and then we bring that something to a marketplace and exchange that value. We've come up with this idea of money to help facilitate that exchange of value. Over time, however, what happens is once you, in the early days, could have been stones, salt, grain, cattle, all kinds of things were used as money. Over years, eventually it became precious metals were the primary go-to for money. And then we've evolved to what we have currently, which is fiat money, which is just money by declaration. But the
Yes.
idea is it's still a social construct.
Yeah.
Nothing has value unless we determine it has value.
Hmm.
But what happens is money, once it becomes widely accepted, you and I, empower money. So we
Hmm.
believe money is the most valuable commodity because it allows us to get everything else. So over time, we collectively empower money. And then going back, I said all wealth is a function of creating value, right? Human beings doing something productive. Well, we say, I don't have to do anything productive. All I have to do is get money. And once I get money, then I can buy whatever it is I want. And the equation changes from I'm going to create value and bring that value to the marketplaces to how do I get money any way I can get money? And as soon as I have money, then I have the power to get whatever I want. It breaks the paradigm, which goes back even further. The old paradigm of getting what I wanted was to hit the guy over the head who had what I wanted. It was a power-based structure. We have not really replaced that power-based structure. We have civilized it, if you will.
Yeah, there you
So,
go.
so we
Perfect
have a
analogy.
making game, which is the real economy, which is you and I creating value, bringing that value to the marketplace and exchanging it with money. But we have the old game, which
Hmm.
is a competition, is a struggle. It's a taking game of
Hmm.
taking whatever I want. That old game still lays on top of the
Yeah.
making game. So people are creating real value, but we have more and more imposed the taking game, which used to be I just hit you over the head, but now it's all civilized. Now we have rules and laws and how this game is played, but it really is a financialized game. So in simple parlance, it is Wall Street. Wall Street is only focused about on ownership, not creating value, but who owns the value, who owns and who owes. So we have the making game, which is the real economy, which is Main Street. Then we have the taking game, which is the financialized economy, which is Wall Street. Wall Street only cares about who owes and who owns. So they're dividing up the pie where real creators of real wealth are enlarging the pie.
Hmm.
So I've just summarized the money game for you, and it might have been a little more than you asked in the question,
It's
but
great. So, how, in terms of, because it's really interesting with this, with the increase in vibration and increase in, and also realizing the greed around money and that certain people, puppet masters, control so much of that as well. What would you say in terms of seeing it is as a tool for abundance, for creation, for good?
Yes. I think it goes back to what you had talked about before, which is this perspective on, or your awareness toward. Remember how you talked about food and how
Yes.
is it's good for you? Looking at money, you can look at money as energy. It really is
Yep.
an effort allocation tool. So we measure the value we create with money. It's just a tool to measure that value in exchange. So if you look at that way, what value am I creating? If I just let that energy flow, keep that energy flowing, then I am helping other people to create value and to have the opportunity to create value. So it becomes a perspective shift. And it really is this distinction between making and taking. Am I here to
Yes.
compete and dominate
I
and
love that.
extract, or am I here to contribute,
Mhm.
to collaborate, and to create? And if you are here to contribute, collaborate, and create, then use money as a tool to facilitate that. If you decide I'm here to compete and subjugate and dominate, well, then you're going to use money in a different way, and you're going to be
Mhm.
part of that taking game. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I think there are better consequences if we were all to
Yes.
connect and collaborate and create.
And I love that you talked about like creating relationships. I also want to throw in there that the one thing about abundance that I want to encourage folks, it's not just, income that you get from salary. There, like one of the things from this podcast that is so delightful for me is the abundance of relationships and getting. I sometimes someone will say, "Hey, I'm just going to send you this, and thank you so much for being. This is the product that I sell." There is so much enriching that comes my way in doing this. So I just love it. Like just meeting you today and getting to talk about that. And you're in Denver and it's just, this is so abundant to me, yet it doesn't bring me, let's say, green money. And also being open to the magic of that. And when you're open to the flow and how different abundance can just show up on your doorstep, like you talked about in your career too, how things would just come your way because you were in the flow, you were open to the abundance of that. All right, before we go into the practice, Scott, is there anything? All right. Oh, I have a note. Lessons from your golden doodle and Grace your cat. Do you want to end with that, or yeah? What would you like to end with?
Well, one of the things that I wanted to bring up is just a way of thinking about this. And so let me, I'll bring in Rusty and Grace.
Okay.
Two things that amaze me about Rusty and Grace really is that they're always in the moment. It's
Yeah.
always present. It's always fun, food, adventure. That's where they are. So they don't, I don't see them depressed. I don't see, all the struggles that we have because we're always somewhere else. If
Yeah.
we can get to the present, then life is going to be this magnificent adventure. One of the things that I wanted to bring up as we were talking is this metaphor, and I think about it of this splitting of the earth. Remember, we talked about the
Yes.
new earth and the old earth,
And
and
the
you're going to
split.
make it. I think we're being forced to a choice. All of us, every
Yep.
single one of us, there's going to be no escaping this. You've got to make a choice. Which way am I going to go? Well, to think about which way am I going to go, think of this radio station metaphor. So, all the radio waves right now, and if we just use AM and FM as an example, so the AM and FM band, there are hundreds of signals. They're all being broadcast right now.
Mhm.
But I tune in to one of them.
Mhm.
And it could be country music. It could be a talk radio station. It could be a news station or some sort of dramatic program. They're all happening. They're all being broadcast at the same time. But the one I listen to, the one I connect with, the one I'm aware of is the one that I tune to. Well, think of it life the same way. Everything is being broadcast. Everything from anger and hate and resentment and condemnation to compassion and joy and love. It's all being broadcast. But what am I tuning to? What am I tuning to? So the key is tuning to the frequency that you want to experience. And it could be that old frequency. And I'm saying that old frequency of conflict and competition and violence and destruction and pain and suffering. And some people will choose that without
Yeah.
even considering another option because that's all they know. But
Mhm.
that's okay. That's their choice. And that's the experience they're going to have. They're eventually going to move beyond that, but that's okay. We've been in it for 12,000 years. The new earth is a different frequency. The new earth is an opportunity to expand and grow with this idea of connection and compassion and the idea of creating prosperity for all of us. It's revealing that divine nature of who and what we are, but it's a different frequency. And you must find that frequency and tune into it. Think of it, it's all happening, it's all going on. Which frequency am I going to go with? Am I going to go with the old, the
Mhm.
known, the safe, the fear and resistance place, or am I going to go with the new? Which means still going to be uncomfortable. That's why we're seeing so much resistance and all this turmoil.
Yeah.
Why there's so much fear is because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. I've got to let go. I've got to go with the flow. I've got to realize I don't have all the answers. I'm not separate and alone. I'm in this with
Yeah.
everyone else. We're all in this together. If I can approach it that way, then I will realize all will be well.
Hmm. In terms of the frequency and tuning in, I have a friend of mine who has a real challenge with trust. And I'm like, if you have a challenge with trust, that what you're going to see in your life is untrustworthiness. And I am at this, well, also, I trust people. I trust humanity, even with everything that's going on. And within that, my connections are very trustworthy and very, because that's what I choose to see. That's what I want to have or desire to have in my life. So to add on to Scott, even right now, when there's chaos going on, your life can be beautiful and is beautiful. Ah, so awesome. And I love that your cat's name is Grace too, because we are at a point, a choice point where a lot of grace needs to happen. All right, what are you going to bring for us today for the practice?
Just be
Okay, I have a
practice.
two-part
Ooh,
practice that relates to this frequency metaphor.
okay.
First part of the practice is what I say you have to answer the golden question. So part one is answer the golden question. Now, to do that is a multi-step process. What I'd like you to do as first part of this practice, the golden question is, what do I want? What do I really want? Now, if you look at the full question, it's what do I really want to experience? But it could be anything you want to have, do, become. What do I want? Most people never take the time to answer this question. So I'd like
Crazy.
you, first, part one is to answer this question. What do I really want? Now, to answer that question thoughtfully and honestly, earnestly and honestly, what I'd like you to do is part one, find a trusted partner. Now, this is someone you can have a deep, honest conversation with, someone who's not going to judge you. I want a real face-to-face conversation with a real live human being. And I want you to go through this. What do I really want? So first thing to do so think of who that partner is and then connect with that partner. Write down your answer to the question, what do I want? This is going to take you some time to reflect, think about it, write down a detailed answer. Then that trusted partner, get together, and I want you to have in a private space a conversation, face-to-face conversation. The partner will need something to write with. They are going to ask you a series of 7 questions. The 7
Hmm.
questions are very simple. So you know what you want. The first question is you tell that your trusted partner, what do I want? And you tell them that answer. And so first question to you is, what is so important about that? Why do you want that? Now, the two of you have a conversation to get to the answer to that question. So you're exploring, why do you want what
Yeah.
you want? The two of you come to terms and your partner writes down your answer. So you come to, this is why I want what I want. Question two, why do you want, what's so important about the answer to that second question?
Yeah.
And keep on going. So you're going to
Break it
go
down.
keep asking that same question to 7 levels. You're going to ask the same question 7 times. What do you want? Why do you want it? Why do you want that? Why do you want that?
Hmm.
Why do you want that? Keep going, because first it's going to be superficial. I want to be rich and famous. Why do you want to be rich and famous? Well, I want to be rich and famous because. Well, why? Because keep getting deeper and deeper. When you go to 7 levels of depth, so it's the same question 7 times. Why do you want that? 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 If you have a thoughtful, honest, genuine conversation, you are going to get down to your purpose. What do I really want and why? The why is going to be a revelation to you. Why do I want that? So this is part one of the practice. Part one is figuring out what you really want and take the time to actually have a face-to-face conversation with someone you trust, to have that honest conversation and dig down 7 levels deep to get to a substantive answer.
And potentially, could their initial, because I've done exercises like this before, which they're so transformative that sometimes your initial desire, when you get down 7 layers, you're like, oh my God, that's not what I really desire at all. Okay,
Yes.
continue.
Yes, that is absolutely true. And your emotions, it isn't necessarily that you're going to be led. If you have this conversation, you will be led to a
Mm,
result that is going to be powerful for you.
yeah.
Now, the second part of this practice is your daily tuning exercise.
Mm,
And by that, I mean, say once a day in the morning, you say, okay, the question is you're assessing. So, the second part of this practice is assessing what you are tuned to. So, you've determined your purpose, and your purpose, whatever it may be, the direction you're heading is in the direction of that. This is what you say you want. So that should be the direction that you head into. So the assessment is, what am I tuned into right now?
mm,
So what am I listening to? Who am I listening to? How is it affecting me? How do I feel? And is it aligned with my purpose?
yeah.
If the answer to those questions, or so what am I tuned into right now? And is it aligned with my purpose? If the answer to that is I'm tuned into something that is not aligned with my purpose, then I need to reset. I
Yes.
need to reset. Now, it's not in an angry way. It's not in a judgmental way. It's just, I'm going to change direction because this is really what I want. And this is what I need to make my purpose. So I'm not going to spend my time, energy, and effort. I'm not going to just dissipate all of that effort and things that I really don't want. So it is a retuning. And the retuning might be moving in a more compassionate, a more giving, a more loving direction that will be aligned with your purpose. So it is being open to the opportunity that is before you. So the two-part practice. Part one, figure out what you really want, but have a face-to-face conversation. Go 7 levels deep. Part two is a daily tuning practice. Am I tuned to my purpose? If not, then reset. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. So getting every part of you aligned to your mission.
Yes.
And that's how you accomplish it, not to be distracted. That's great and lovely. Okay. Anything else with that? I think that's plenty because that's definitely not something you just do here. This is yeah, important work. Scott. Okay. I'm going to put your links down below. Of course, let's do what do you want to focus on your website? Because there's one piece
One
I
of
put on the video.
to connect with me, the easiest place is go through LinkedIn, which is my
Okay.
LinkedIn connection. You have looked at some of my videos out there. I've got programs on udemy.com, udemy.com,
Yeah.
which are actually educational programs, 3 different programs on there. But I also have a program which is I have the same program in a course program, what's really going on, apocalypse or evolution, on udemy.com as a course. But then I also published it or posted it on a YouTube channel. And I think if you want to kind of get a sense for where I'm coming from, go look at that YouTube channel and look at those videos.
Nice. Very nice to have you on the show today to hear your perspective and your past. And I'm curious about your future. Scott, again, you have a really kind heart. Continue getting that out in the world. And I love you presenting it to people who might not have even really looked at that or thought about that. So keep doing what you're doing. Much luck to you. All right, everybody, stay tuned for next week. Again, I love the people that come on the show, on my show, just a different array of voices and perceptions. It's just great. Thank you again, Scott.
Thank you, Eden.
You're welcome. Y'all, find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Truth Social, as well as Rumble, BitChute, YouTube, plus a plethora of other audio directories like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So like, subscribe, do it all. See ya.